Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is abundance teacher and money coach, Jody Lynn Craven.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
You know, Jody Lynn, based on our pre-show conversation that we were having with our guest today, this is going to be a fun show.
Definitely.
I mean, there's no way of predicting where this is going to go, which is our favorite kind, right?
Exactly. Yeah, this one's going to be fun.
Yeah.
No pressure.
No pressure. No pressure. This is going to be easy for you. So our guest today is Jon Paul Crimi, and he is an expert on breath work. We're going to get into that in just a moment. But first, as we always like to do, we want to find out more about who he is as a human being and how he got to be to the point in life where he's doing what he's doing right now. Because there's always a good story there, and we like a good story. So, Jon Paul, first of all, welcome to the program, and tell us a story.
Sure. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be with you guys today. So I guess my story starts out in South Boston, or South Shore of Boston, Massachusetts. I'm from a little town 25 minutes outside of Boston called Pembroke, Massachusetts, which is the fifth.
I know where that is.
You do? That's the fifth most Irish town in America.
So I know the area pretty well.
Okay. Yeah. So it's the fifth most Irish town in America, surrounded by the 13 most Irish towns in America. They call it the Irish Riviera. And so I didn't know that growing up. I just thought everyone had 17 brothers and sisters and got drunk and punched each other in the face.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, that was normal. And so, and with a name like Jon Paul, right? You know, on the South Shore of Boston.
Yeah, that's an interesting mix.
Yeah. It's like, you know, are you French? Are you French, Jon Paul? I'm like, I'm not French. I'm Irish and I'm Italian and Scottish, which means I like to drink a lot. I don't want to pay for it. And then I want to start a fight. And so
I love it.
And being from Boston means those things as well. So
it does, yes.
Yeah. So it was an interesting childhood. You know, it was pretty wild. We got in a lot of trouble, me and my friends. And you know, I like to. The one positive impact I had in my life was working out. I worked out in the gym. I started working out when I was pretty young, and that had an effect on me. I got to see, you know, if I work at something, it actually changes my physical being, and it actually changes my mental being. So that was the one positive thing I found in my childhood. And I moved to Los Angeles when I was 23 years old. So I had some aspirations, some dreams of becoming an actor. And in my youth, I did theater when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And I studied method acting in Los Angeles. And I got this thing. It probably started about 25 years old. I got alopecia, which is hair loss, right? You know, your immune system gets haywire. It's an autoimmune disease. And it thinks that your hair follicles are a foreign body, and it starts attacking your hair follicles, right?
Wow.
And so I started getting these patches and all this. And I like to joke now about, you know, if you don't think your emotions can affect your health, then go find my eyebrows, because they're gone. They're gone. And so that's a physical manifestation of an emotional thing, right? That's how that works. And so I started losing my hair, and I was an actor and a fitness model, and that was rough because, you know, my self-esteem, my self-worth was wrapped up in my looks, sadly. And that was being stripped away. And it really accelerated my alcohol and drug use. And so, because I didn't have the tools to deal with that. I didn't have any tools, really.
Well, we're never handed a guidebook when we grow up. I mean, that's just not the way life works.
No, like you lose a friend, here's what you should do. Here's how you process grief, right? I didn't have that tool book. So I lost a lot of friends growing up, and I lost 6 close friends, you know, before I was 21. So I had a lot of stuff, and I got stabbed when I was 19 and left for dead. And a couple other things like that. I got jumped by 5 guys and beat up and put in the hospital, all kinds of, you know. And Freud says the most important decision you'll ever make is whether you live in a hostile universe or a friendly universe. Yes. And so I felt like I lived in a hostile universe until I got sober, and some people changed that viewpoint for me. And then breathwork really changed it for me. So I got sober at about 26 years old. I started seeing a therapist. She suggested 12-step recovery. I was like, wow, that's for, like, you know, people living on the street, you know, and that's what I thought at the time. But I found out different when I went into some, you know, meetings in Los Angeles. It was a lot of people who actually were my age and, in the 20s and had good lives, who were living good lives. And people were very kind and stuck their hand out to me and helped me. And that's
well, you also did the smart way too. I mean, because statistically, people who only go through 12-step, only about 6% actually have recovery. But you also had a therapist, and that dramatically increases the percentages.
Yeah, I hear that statistic, and it gets my Irish up. I don't know. I don't know why. Like the 6%, because that's not my experience. And maybe I just got really lucky and fell in with a good group of guys, because most of the guys that I got sober with are still sober today. And so that's not 6%. It's a lot higher.
But how many of them also had therapists and other kinds of support?
Not a lot of them, but I think, now, I've been sober 26 years. I think you need to do a lot of things. It's not like you're correct. It's not just sobriety, right? It's not enough, because sobriety is really about the trauma that's underlying it, right? The alcohol and the drug use is my solution to the problem. The problem is inside of me, and the problem is the trauma that happened to me that I haven't processed, that I haven't dealt with, that I haven't looked at. So yeah, I've done it all at this point. I've done Tony Robbins, I've done Hoffman process, I've done all the different things out there that you can do, and the breath work, millions of different things. I've done it all, and
there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of really good stuff out there.
There's some amazing stuff out there.
Yeah,
I can speak to a lot of it. And breath work was the thing that I found. I found it 15 years ago. So I was 12 years sober at the time, and it was really massive in sobriety. I'd already been sober 12 years. I'd already been helping people. I was a celebrity sober coach. I was helping rock stars and actors get sober, and touring with rock bands, and going on the set with movie stars and lots of big famous people. Anyone you've heard that has a problem, I probably helped them at some point. I tried to help them, and some people you haven't. So, I found breathwork then, and that was life-changing for me. And, I don't know if we want to dive into that yet, or we want to go more.
Let's find out because breathwork, especially the way you were describing it to us earlier, is different from what we would normally think it is. There's a lot more to it. And when you mentioned that it takes like a half hour, I said, okay, half hour. Yeah, that's not the typical breathwork I've heard. So we got to find out more about this.
My whole class is an hour, and the way it's structured is, it's like an 8 to 10 minute presentation, because I need to prepare you properly, right? Because like we were just saying, this isn't this relaxing meditation. This isn't relaxing. Here's the thing people are getting wrong about breathwork. It's an umbrella term. It's like saying fitness, right? If I said, yeah, I do fitness, Walt, you go, wait, what do you do? Do you do, CrossFit? Do you do Soul Cycle? What do you mean you do fitness, right? And so what's the fitness? And breathwork is like that. There's box breathing, and there's all these different coherent breathing. There's all these different types. Wim Hof is really popular. I teach circular breathwork, or conscious connected breathing. I know all the different kinds. I can do all the different kinds. But the reason I focus on this particular type, massive results in the shortest amount of time.
Okay.
People say it's like 20 years of therapy without, saying a word. That's what I got that from my classes. When I would do a class, some people would come up to me like, that felt like 20 years of therapy. Holy shit. All this stuff. And so I was like, I'm going to put that down on my, my class thing, on my marketing. I'm going to start.
Yeah, absolutely. But when your market hands you the material, you use it if you're smart.
Well, I couldn't explain it to people. I didn't know how to explain what it was, because it's different for everybody, and it's different every time you do it. So you could do it, and Jody Lynn could do the same exact class and have totally different experiences. Then you could do the replay from that class and have a different experience. And so I'll get like some guy at my house that's doing construction work, and he'll go, what do you do? And I go, I teach breathwork. And he goes, what's that? And I go, it's hard to explain, but it's like 20 years of therapy without saying a word. And he'll go, all right, I want to try that. And then we go do it. And, it's just a powerful experience. And so and I do my best to prepare people properly. I take 8 to 10 minutes, which is, way beyond people's attention spans. I know nowadays we all have this 2-minute TikTok attention span, but I have to prepare people and tell them, like, look, this is going to happen to you. You're going to feel some weird stuff in your body. Emotions are going to come up. You might cry. Let it up. Let it out. Don't push it back down. I have this whole presentation I have down. And, mentally, your brain doesn't want you to do it. There's a thing that can happen during this particular type of breath work. It's called transient hypofrontality. Part of the prefrontal cortex of your brain can shut down in this incredible way. And it's the area of your brain where the critic lives, where the ego lives, that tells you you're not enough, right? I'm not thin enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not rich enough. I am not enough. And so the first time I ever felt like I was enough was the first time I did this breath work. And also it gave me that feeling I was looking for with drugs and alcohol, which is turning off my brain, getting a break from all the constant chatter in my head that talks shit all the time. I was like, why didn't somebody show this to me when I was a teenager? You know, I wouldn't have ruined so many lives around me. And, so yeah, it just turns that off in this incredible way. And so when I found that, I had my brain turned off. I had this massive emotional release. I cried in a way that I'd never cried before. And I just was like, oh my God, why doesn't everyone know about this? How does the world not know about this breathwork thing? And I had a realization early on in one of my own sessions, which was, oh, it's in these little new agey woo-woo circles with, you know, new agey kind of people. And I'm not that, right? Mm-hmm. And people want to do things with people that they can relate to, people that are like them. And I thought, if somebody taught this in a way, I had just met Tony Robbins and done his seminar. If somebody taught it like Tony Robbins or East Coast, edgy, funny, they'd have hundreds of people in the room. These classes that I was going to were like 5 people. The music was terrible. So I was like, somebody taught this was funny, edgy, brought in the science to it, cool music. They'd have hundreds of people, maybe thousands in the room. I was right. It just took a little while to get there. It took me a couple of years to get there. But it turned out, you know, and it's an interesting story of how I found it, or how I went down the breathwork road, which was my friend Matthew Perry from the TV show Friends. He had done a session with the healer guy in Los Angeles, and he was telling me about it. And I was like, that sounds like nonsense. Sounds like is asphyxiating you or doing something weird. And he's like, well, you're my only friend that's open-minded enough to try this. So I bought you a session for you to try out. I was like, all right, I'll try it. And I went. And it was a different type of breathing technique than I teach now, but it cracked something open in me. I had an experience which was way out there, and it was undeniable. I came home and my wife looked at me and she goes, you look like a different person. You're like, you know, and I started working with that guy, started working with another guy, learning all this woo-woo breathwork stuff. I went down the rabbit holes of all the unusual, weird stuff. And people noticed a shift in me. My clients, my friends, family, they were like, you're totally different. Like, you're happy, you're present. What's going on? Are they like, are you medicated now? What's up? And I was like, yeah, I'm doing this weird breathing thing. And it just clears out all the shit every day. Right. And so I started doing it every day. And they go, well, show me. And I was like, oh God. So I started showing clients and people, friends, and they were having experiences. And then a woman asked me to teach a class. And I was like, I don't know. I've never taught a class before. She's like, you'd be great at it. So I taught a class, and Matthew Perry, my friend, my dear friend, he came to one of those classes. He came to like my first class, and he was like, this is your gift. This is what you're supposed to do.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
And I was like, nah, I still wanted a TV show at the time. And he's like, no, and he showed up. He came a couple years later when the class was like 200 people sold out. And he's like, I told you that this was your gift. Yeah. And, you know, and sometimes, you know, I didn't want to do it at the time when I first started. It's like, but I've learned now, like, we have to give up our dreams to step into our destiny. You know, we don't always know what the right thing is for us. And we can keep pursuing this thing just because we've been pursuing it for so long, or because we wanted it so bad. And we can miss something else that's right in front of us that's so beautiful. It's so amazing if we're willing to like step into that. And so finally I embraced it, and I realized it was giving me real purpose. It was giving me real fulfillment in my life. You know, I could have this thing where I would do a session or I would do a class, and I could see a shift in people. And I was like, oh man, you know, it made me feel so good about myself. And that's what really matters. You know, people, I think, are chasing happiness all the time, and they think if they're not happy every day or something's wrong. And happiness is an emotion that's going to come and go. But fulfillment, purpose, if I have work that gives me purpose, that makes me feel good, that fills me up, that will keep me going through the times that aren't happy. That will sustain me. So I started focusing on how can I help as many people as possible with this incredible breath work that I teach? How do I change as many lives on the planet with this incredible breath work? And after a couple years of teaching it and sold out classes, people kept asking me to teach them how to teach it. So I got pulled into teaching others how to teach it, right? That was the inevitable path, I guess, because I kept sending them to other teachers, but they were like, that guy's really great, but he's very new agey and woo woo. And they're talking about spirit animals and, you know, all this kind of stuff, which is not me at all. And so I started doing teacher trainings, and it really made sense. Everything I did in my life went into this teacher training to make me really good at teaching other people how to teach it. You know, I have a script that I give people, and then I show them different ways to learn the script. We learn the script in the training, so you know exactly what to say to prepare people properly, and how to get, you know, how to deal with clients or students when they freak out in the session, if that happens, all these different things. And then I teach it in a way that's very motivational, because breath work, this style of breath work, circular breath work, it's uncomfortable. The first 10 minutes, your brain really fights you. It doesn't want you to shut it off. So it's going to try and fight you. And you have to kind of push through that to have this big transformational experience that I'm talking about. And so I brought in the trainer, the old trainer in me, like, come on, you've done harder shit in your life, Jody Lynn, than lay on the floor and breathe. Let's go. You can do this, right? Because your brain's like, I don't like it. It's weird. It's hard. You know, I'm like, come on, Walt, you got this. Come on. You're not delicate. You're powerful. Let's go. Right. So I'm like saying all this motivational stuff during the class. And then like sort of halfway through towards the end, I start saying emotional stuff. I start saying stuff that cracks people open, because what comes from the heart goes to the heart. And I think this is where my gift lies in being a breathwork teacher is I get very vulnerable. I open myself up. And as a kid in Boston, South Boston, I didn't like that vulnerability. It was not very well received. And
in South Boston, it would actually be detrimental to your health and safety.
Yeah, exactly.
It really would.
My joke is if I have a feeling, I have to push the feeling down, do a shot, and then punch somebody in the face to get the feeling to go away. So, yeah, so it wasn't good. But, you know, I've learned that our greatest wounds can become our greatest gifts. So my vulnerability, I allow that in my classes. And I say something that moves me, and I get vulnerable, I get emotional, and you can hear it in my voice. You can hear me crack and get emotional in the class. And then that gives the people who are breathing the permission to get emotional and open up. And it's really powerful. It's really beautiful. And then after the breath work's over, you know, we let out a massive yell at the end, which is really good. You're just like, you know, fuck you, Dad, whatever, no judgment, you know, you let it all out in this yell. When in life do we yell? When in life, maybe in the car in Los Angeles, it's really acceptable, but like not many places times we get to let out this massive yell. And then I have you pull moments into your heart, moments of gratitude, moments of love from your life, like different moments, things that matter, because I want to bring you back to what really matters, what's really important, which is gratitude and love. And then I have a little Q&A at the end of class. So that's kind of like the class in a nutshell.
Okay. Yeah. And I like that. By the way, when you were talking about the yelling, it flashed me back to when I was in college, because when I was in college, it was a time where there was a thing called a primal scream that people were doing. And, you know, especially when the studying got intense, you know, getting ready for finals and so forth, the word would get out around the dorm. Okay. Primal scream at 4:30, and everybody would gather outside, and it was loud. It was really loud. There's a lot of energy to be released.
There's something there, though. It's something inside of us. You know, I got it from someone else I went to someone else's class, and I didn't really love the music or the teacher or any of it. And then at the very end, he was like hitting this gong, this massive gong, and we were screaming. And I just was like, it felt so primal. It felt like years, maybe even other lifetimes of stuff, which is not something I would normally say. Yeah. I felt like I was letting go. I was just like, oh, like this unbelievable. And I said, oh shit, I got to buy a gong now and like bring a gong to my classes. And like, we're going to do this scream. And
so Jody, I mean, do you have I got to ask you this. I mean, this is like an obvious question. Do you have a gong? Do you have like a process for doing screaming? Because clearly there's a benefit to it.
No, I actually don't. I'm not much of a like yeller. I had a really awful relationship. One of my very first serious relationships growing up, and he was like a screamer, and it was a very toxic and volatile relationship. And I was never a screamer until like that point where I would start to yell back and freak out on him, because that's the only way that I felt that he would listen. It was not a good relationship, but no, I've never really had this urge to like let one out, like a good scream or whatever, because I'm just more like quiet. Not that I wouldn't, because it sounds like it could be fun.
Well, here's the thing that I've seen it with my own eyes a lot. Men need permission to cry, and women need permission to yell or scream.
Totally.
And the gong gives that permission, and it's something to do with the gong in the classes, because it's so loud. Because I've done it without the gong, and women are like, and then I've done it with the gong, and they're like, oh,
yeah.
It's like it really gives you that. It gives you that permission, and so that's a bit of a generalization, but it's just what I've seen. Men really need that permission, because we do this thing to young boys. Well, we used to do it. I don't think we do it as much anymore, which is like, be a man, don't cry, walk it off. And it's like, they're 8 years old. Like, why are you telling them to be a man?
I thought that was gone too. Since I ended up getting divorced about 3.5 years ago. After that divorce, I got thrust back into the singles market. Let me tell you, it's still there. It's there, actually bigger than I would have thought it would be. I thought it would be pretty much gone by now, and it's just the opposite. It's actually expanded.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an interesting documentary about that called The Mask We Live In, which is what we do to boys, how we turn, be a man at 8 years old. Doesn't make sense. But so that's why a lot of guys are pushing it down. I have a lot of guys that come to my class, and they have these big emotional releases because they're not talking to anyone. They're not seeing a therapist. They're not talking to anyone. Women tend to talk to their friends much more and let it out and have a good cry together. That's a very feminine energy thing, not men. The masculine energy is like, you don't do that. So I find that guys actually have a great experience in my class, because it's sort of a place where they can let go of all the stuff that they've been pushing down.
And it's really important. Listeners will know that I've been dealing with an ongoing, it seems like an epic of events with 2 cats that were in my life and my ex's life. I lost Joy a little over 6 weeks ago, and we've been struggling to keep Harmony alive after she got diagnosed like 2 weeks after he died with the same disease, the same kidney disease that he had. And the prognosis was that she'd be gone in a few days. Well, we actually kept her alive for quite a while, but sadly, on Monday we had to let go, and she had to move on back into the spirit world again. So it's been a traumatic time. And I bring this up because on both occasions, it was really testing me in terms of my work that I've been doing on myself over the years to be willing to release the emotion, not just release the emotion, but to release it in the presence of others. I think I kind of shocked my ex and her friend who were there, because I completely just lost it right there in the vet's office right after Harmony was put down. I mean, my ex is a former therapist, so I think she was also proud of me, but nevertheless, it was a surprise for them to experience that. And with good reason. It's not something we see all the time. Yeah. Men just socially, even now, even if the messages aren't deliberately put out there regularly, the meaning is still there. The hidden message is still there. And I think most guys actually adhere to it almost subconsciously. They don't even realize they're doing it half the time.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it has to do too with the model behavior that they're watching. Like I know with the dynamic between like my father and my brother, my dad is like stoic and strong, and he does have emotions, but I've heard him cry once in a videotape. He was talking about his kids, and I listened to it, and he was choking up, and I was like, oh, wow. And then I've seen him cry once, which was when my grandfather passed away, and he, came to he wasn't doing the last rites, but came to watch the last rites over the body. And I happened to be there because I was close, and I saw a tear like in his eye, and that's it. But I remember like growing up that he would always like beat this drum with my brother. Like, it's okay if you want to cry, because we're like a cowboy family, and it's like cowboys don't cry. And, like just that's a big thing of don't cry, don't show your emotions. But I remember when my brother was like 6, maybe 5 years old, we were at a funeral. I don't remember whether it was my godfather or my baba, so grandmother. They passed away around the same time. But I remember him like my dad lifting my brother onto something, and my brother was starting to break down and stuff. And he looked at him and he was like, it's okay to cry. It's all right for you to be emotional. And he looked at my dad and was like, but why aren't you?
Oh, yeah.
And like, that's the message he carried through life. Like, my brother is very emotional, but not super connected with his emotions. Like, if something emotional is going on, you'll see him cry. But he always had this belief system in his head that he needed to be strong and stoic and like the man of the house. And what's interesting is I also felt that, being a woman and even the youngest kid in my family, when shit was hitting the fan, my brother was crying over in the corner. And I was like, all right, I got to do the dishes, take care of the house, because if I fall apart, then dad's going to fall apart, or like, you know, the family is over. But, you know, I think that was totally what I perceived I needed to do to be safe in those moments. And same with my brother.
A great point. I mean, because we don't even realize half the time how we're getting this messaging. You just described it beautifully in that story about how the messaging wasn't even overt. It just kind of carried through. It was almost like something that permeated the scene rather than something that was actually talked out.
Yeah. It's the modeling of it. You're dead on, Jody Lynn, where you're saying he's looking at your dad, but you're not crying. So it's what we model for our kids. We can tell them all the things we want to tell them, but we have to model for them, right? And you know, I use this leverage on myself all the time. You know, I saw my daughter being hard on herself, and it broke my heart. You know, but because I'm hard on myself, and so I had to stop. I had to like go. Like, I can't be hard on myself anymore. And I don't want her to see me be hard on myself anymore. Like, I'm gonna make mistakes after this podcast. That's a given. I'm never gonna hit a place in my life where I'm not making mistakes. So can I stop being so hard on myself when I make those mistakes? That's the shift that I need to get. And that's the shift that I try to get my students to get, and my kids to get. But it really is the modeling. And we hit on it really well, which is here when it's grief of an animal or a loved one, that's when it's okay for a man to cry. That's the acceptable place for a man to cry or a boy to cry is grief. Everywhere else, forget it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, why is that? You know, why?
And
why
even with the dead loved one or the pet who's passed on or whatever, even in those situations, it's borderline. I mean, it's more acceptable now than it was, say, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But you're supposed to like have limits to it.
Yeah, I know.
Don't do it too much.
Don't do it too much. No.
Yeah. So it is interesting. And I think that's where this breath work that I teach is really powerful, because it allows you to process those emotions. Because what's happening, this is what I didn't know. This is what most people don't realize. Because I had done the 12-step, I had done the therapy, I had done the Tony Robbins, I'd done all the things. And then I laid down and did this breath work, and all this stuff came up, right? Stuff from when I was 8 years old and I broke my arm. Like, I was like, what's going on with my arm? Oh yeah, you broke it there when you were 8. Like, stuff when this happened and that happened, all the stuff. It lives in our nervous system. It stays inside of us until we clear it out. And this breath work actually helps you clear this stuff out of your nervous system. And what I didn't realize, I had heard people say it most of my life, you're overreacting. Like, people always tell me I'm overreacting. What do you mean? This is who I am. Like, what do you mean? You know, and I get so mad, but I realized I was overreacting because it was all the stuff in my nervous system. And then something would happen, that the popular word now is trigger. It would trigger my nervous system. It would trigger all those old things that happened to me. And I would have this big, huge response, which wasn't appropriate for the situation. And after a year of breathing this way and doing this breath work, I had processed all my stuff. So now when I have a situation happen, doesn't mean I'm never going to get angry. Doesn't mean I'm never going to get sad or grief, but I have the appropriate amount of anger or sadness or grief for the situation. And I also have a tool that I can use whenever I need to, right? I can't tell you how many times I've had an argument with my wife. Not a lot. We don't fight a lot, but like, I've gone and done some breath work afterwards. And then I come back down. I'm like, I'm sorry for what I said. I have a shirt that says, I'm sorry for what I said before breath work, you know,
before breath work.
Because what it does is it gets me to the place that I realize, like, oh, that was such a stupid argument. Like, that doesn't even, that thing that we were going back and forth, it doesn't mean anything. It means absolutely nothing in the big picture. I love this person. That's what's important. And it gets me there. Otherwise, I'm Irish. I could be angry for 4 days, 5 days, and without saying a word. And then we just move on like we never even talk about it. We don't do that in my house, but in
if you're
my
Irish,
family growing up, right?
I think the Irish, I guess you call it the thing you hand from generation to generation. You can be angry from the 1860s. I mean, there's no limit to how much anger you can carry when you're Irish.
Yeah, there's a thing they call it Irish Alzheimer's. You forget everything but the resentments.
Yeah, right.
So
good way to describe it, sure.
Yeah. So, I'm very good at that. But the method I learned is like, you don't talk about it. You don't resolve the situation. You don't have a conversation about it. And that's not how I live. It's not, what I'm teaching my kids. It's not the family I'm raising, but I've changed those patterns. And I tell people who are coming to my classes is like, you get to change the story in your family. You get to be the change agent for your lineage. You can be the one, whether you have kids or not.
That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. I mean, because there's a lot of stuff that gets passed down generation to generation. If you can stop that pattern, that's a big deal.
Yeah. Science has proven that trauma is passed on through the DNA. So you thought you were screwed up because of your parents, and you were right. It is their fault. Give them a call and let them know. No, don't do that. Don't call them. I always joke about that in my classes. I always say that, but it's like, do you now that? Are you going to do something about it? Are you going to pass it on to your kids unconsciously? It's up to you.
Well, we've hinted around this thing, and earlier, actually, before we started the show, I was even after we started the show, I hinted on how I have gone to what my breathing is as a way to calm myself, to feel better in situations where there's something traumatic going on or something very unpleasant going on or whatever. But you also made it pretty clear this is not something you do in 5 minutes. This is like a 30-minute thing or whatever.
Yeah,
so I think we need to get some clues like what actually happens in this stuff.
Well, it's different for everybody, and it's different every time you do it, right? And so,
but I mean, there's got to be like a mechanism you do. There's got to be like process that you do.
Yeah. So there is a thing. So when you're breathing in this way that I show you, we're breathing through the mouth, which is very different, right? Most of the time in life, you should be breathing through the nose. When you're sleeping, when you're walking, right? You want to be nose breathing. You want to be breathing through the nose. And what that does is it puts you in your parasympathetic. When you were talking about calming yourself down, a simple way to do that is to take a 4-second inhale through the nose down into the diaphragm and let out an exhale out of the mouth.
Right.
Right. The way you would teach a kid that is you tell them to smell the chocolate cake and then blow out all the candles.
I like that. That's good.
And I've done that with my kids when they're having a meltdown, right? And then you go, wait, take a breath, close your mouth, breathe through your nose, smell the chocolate cake, blow out the candles, and you can see them calm down. You can see the nervous system calm down. So that's, most breath work techniques and tools out there are to do that, to calm the nervous system down, which is amazing. This one is not that. You're breathing through the mouth on purpose into the sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. That's where the stuff is stored. That's where the trauma is stored. That's where all the stories and all the things that happened to you were stored. But we're doing it in a safe environment, right? You're doing it in a safe way, in a safe environment, with the intention of clearing this stuff out, with the intention of healing your body. I use this example when a rabbit gets chased by a fox in the woods or the wild, and it almost gets killed by the fox, but it gets away. It shakes afterwards.
Yes,
to relieve that trauma. Yeah. Well, this is one of the ways that we do that. We can shake and relieve and process this trauma out of our nervous system. So it's an intense process, and it's 30 minutes. The whole class is an hour, but it's 30 minutes of active breath work through the mouth. And to do that in the first 10 minutes, it kind of sucks. You're like, I don't like this. It's weird. Something's happening. I don't feel anything. And then you start to feel a little dizzy, a little lightheaded. And I'm there the whole time going, yeah, you're fine. That's normal. It's normal to feel dizzy. It's going to pass. Just push through. You're going to be okay, And so that's why you need a coach. You need a coach the first time or first couple times to do it with, and then you can do it on your own, right? You can make a playlist. You can do it to your, you can do it on your own. I'm not trying to build a cult following here. That's not my goal. My goal is to just help as many people as I can with this. And so I do have people that like to come to my Sunday class every week because they like my motivation. They like me to push them. They want somebody to go. And I call out names through the class. I'll be like, come on, Walt, you got this. Come on, Jody. I'll be calling people's names out in the class. So some people come for that. but it's an intense process, and it takes a little bit after. You don't just get up after the breath work. I do, I have you pull moments of gratitude, moments of love, and reground you into your body. You're going to be out of it, especially your first couple times you do it. So I always tell people, don't drive after the class. Don't text or call any exes. That's always a terrible idea, but especially after breath work, it's like drunk dialing. You're not going to send them to me and then I'm going to fix them and turn them into the person I thought they could be. I'm going to show you how to be whole and within yourself, how to love yourself. And then, as a byproduct of that, you become more attractive to other people. Right. But the key is to be whole in yourself. I think Jerry Maguire is a big lie. Like, you complete me. You don't need somebody else to complete you.
Yeah. Actually, that's unhealthy. The moment that somebody's suggesting that, that's somebody to not listen to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's not good advice.
No. So, it's really about learning how to love yourself. And it sounds corny and it sounds trite and you hear it all the time now. And it's like, oh, you got to learn how to love yourself. Great. Show me an actionable way to love myself. Show me how I can actually love myself. And I'm saying this is the best way that I've ever found, is to show up and do this inner work, this inside work, and love yourself by doing this work. And it's not comfortable always, but then there's the reward. People think self-love is the bubble bath or the chocolate or the massage. Like, no, that's the reward for doing the hard work.
Right.
I like to say, work hard on yourself, but don't be hard on yourself.
Well, I'm curious about this method because, I actually have my own method that I went through in order to accomplish the same goal. Now, my method is mirror work, and it's also a lot of work. It's work spread out over days rather than in an intense 30-minute session. But you do the work, and if you don't do the work, you don't get anywhere. You actually have to go through and do really kind of, at times, cringing, at times unpleasant, at times boring, at times. There's a lot of different emotions that get attached to it, but you have to go through it all. And it can be exhausting. It can be exhilarating. It can be both at the same time, which is really odd. But that's the way it is with any kind of really good process. You put something into it in order to get something out of it. So it doesn't surprise me that you're saying, don't operate heavy machinery after you've been doing this thing. It's just not a good idea.
No, there's a little bit of work in the breath work. And I always like to say, this touches on what you just said. The life that you're looking for, the life that you want, is in the work that you've been avoiding.
Yeah.
And so, show up and do the work because you're worth it. But, there's no way around it. It's not going to happen. You can't just wait for somebody to show up in your life and put their hand on your head and heal you. You got to do the work. You're the one who's got to put yourself through it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also curious to know, the way you describe it, it sounds pretty simple. And actually, most processes, when you break them down, they really are simple. But they also have a lot of complexity, not because the processes are complex, but because we're complex. We have a lot of complexity that we bring to the table as we're bringing this stuff up.
Yeah.
And that's the complexity that makes the whole thing so challenging, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the complexity. That's the reason why you do the thing. Like, come on, Walt, you can get through this. That's why you do that, because that complexity can stop you in your tracks.
Yeah. Your mind can talk you out of anything. It really can.
We're good at that.
People start feeling physical sensations doing this work. There's a thing called tetany that the hands can cramp up like this, and it freaks people out. And I prepare people. I tell them this is going to happen, and they still freak out about it, right? And I'm like, I told you that was going to happen. It happens to most people. It's common. You're fine, but they use that as an excuse to stop doing it or to never come back or whatever. And I'm like, that's you're using that as a scapegoat, right? And so it's up to you. There's layers that happen through this process too. Like every time you do the breath work, another layer is peeled back and revealed. And so the people who have been doing it for years, they're on a whole different place than they were when they started. People will come and have a massive result in the first session. I say the results are immediate and undeniable, and they have this big experience. But when you really stick with it and do it for a couple months, that's when you see a huge shift, a change in your behavior. You're rewiring all those old patterns and old behaviors in there. And I've seen this a lot, especially with addicts and alcoholics.
Yeah, I can imagine that. That makes a lot of sense. Jody Lynn, you're a coach among other things, but do you have a go-to process that you've used to work on building your self-confidence, your self-esteem, your self-love, your kindness toward yourself, and so forth? I'm curious, what's your go-to on that?
it's a process that I like accumulated over the years and dealing with my own stuff, and then stuff that I, channeled into, being. But it really is closely aligned with what we're talking about here, which is really interesting. Really tapping into what do I feel inside of my body? Because what I found for myself going through, let's say, my ascension process, if you want to call it that, as I was growing, I realized that I focused a lot on the head space, the conscious and the subconscious stuff, like the Tony Robbins, like it's all in your head. But I had completely forgotten about my body and where the rest of it lives. And that was one of the downloads that I had, was like to really feel it inside of my body. And where did I feel it? And what I found too was I was atrophied. And I find this with a lot of my clients in terms of my language around emotions, like happy, sad, good, bad. That's the words, right? Like, oh, I don't know, what am I feeling? I don't know, I'm sad. I just couldn't quantify what it was. So like learning the language of like, what are feelings? Because I had shut them off for so long, and where do they live in my body? And then really identifying what I would do with my students, because I would do this with myself, was I realized that the brain needed to wake up and see that there was a pattern, that I was in an automatic state of like, I get mad and this is my trigger and I just do this, or I'm scared. I have this moment of scarcity and I do this, whatever it is. But understanding that, okay, well, that's just a process, it's programming. So let's go back to how we reprogram that, identifying that it's actually happening. So I'd make my students like woohoo every time they saw it happening in live in real time, like get the brain turned on. Oh, I see it. It's here. Pay attention. Okay, great. And then calm the nervous system, because I always used to teach it like we're a child having a tantrum. If you try and reason with yourself when you're in this space of being unreasonable, good luck. Like try logic, a toddler, right? You just can't. So you need to come to a place where you're not in that electrified moment. And I would just teach it with like breathing, and put your head on something hard, like put your forehead on your desk or on the floor. And for me, I lived these practices because my nervous system was so out of whack. I would just go down this path of being like afraid and freaked out and like, I got to control it, I got to do. And like my natural flow or my program was like, go. And I would hustle harder, and I would basically try and kill myself working more to try and stop the feeling, but it wouldn't stop the feeling and I would just be exhausted. So it wasn't working, but I would literally, you would catch me sitting on my floor in like child's pose with my head against the floor and just breathing until I would come back to a state of normalcy. And then once I could come back to a state of normalcy and my breath wasn't erratic anymore and I wasn't so locked into the program, then I could start opening up and asking some questions like, what am I afraid of? Like, what is that's there? And then is it really true? Is that absolutely true? Like, because we live in our heads and create the story of what's going to happen. Oh my God, I'm in sales. I have a brokerage business, a financial brokerage, and everything is commission. Oh my God, I didn't get a client today or this week or whatever. I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. I'm going to, not be able to pay my rent. I'm going to get kicked out, and then I'm going to be homeless, and then no one's going to love me, and I'm going to die. That's where I would go, which none of that has happened. Like the day has just gone by, and it's only 9:30 in the morning. Like it's okay. You have lots of time for people to come in. But I needed to really like ground into, well, one, I'm having these feelings, and two, what is the message behind them? Like, what is it, the belief system that I am going towards, and then challenging it. And I would start to challenge everything. What is truth? What is absolutely true? Oh, I believe that, when I'm rich, I will feel safe. Okay, great. Let's talk to Princess Diana. Do you think she felt safe because she was rich? No. When I'm rich, I'm going to be happy. Okay, well, let's talk to Robin Williams. He obviously was not happy. Like, it is an illusion, these things that we think are absolute. And when I started to question all of those things over time and really disconnect them from the belief system that I had, I could open the door to see something else was possible. That happiness, that peace, these things lived within me, and they were a reverberation outside of me that was creating my reality. Not when I have a thing, it's going to make me feel good. So that's kind of the process I went through.
You're pointing to your chest, you're pointing to your heart, right? Happiness, or all these things. But the problem you were talking about, you're pointing to your head, right?
Brain, yeah,
so
right.
It's just like our brain is this supercomputer, and its job is to protect us, and it thinks it's protecting us by working us up. Like, you got to get a client, you got to get a sale today, you got to pay the bill.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be really useful and helpful. And other times it can be horrible. And that's where all these people are getting anxiety now from, because our head it's gotten overactive, and it's making us scared to shit of our whole lives and everything that's going to happen. And we're out in the future and projecting about things that have never happened. Like Mark Twain said, I had a lot of problems, and some of them actually happened. Most of the stuff never even happens, right? But what I found was, when I had this tool that I could turn off my brain and move into my heart, and my heart is this whole other operating system. I can operate my life from here, and I can also integrate the two things. I can integrate my head and my heart together and use them together. I wasn't using my heart at all. I was using my head, and it's this beautiful. I'll give you this perfect illustration. When I used to do private sessions in person a long time ago, often a woman would come in, and I'll go, okay, honey, what's the problem? And she'd go, okay, there's this guy. And I go, okay, 2 minutes to tell me about the guy. And that's it, right? Because I already know the answer. I know where this is going. I know the whole story. So they're like a lawyer arguing both sides of the case. Well, he does this, and he's great, and he doesn't, and then but he doesn't do this, and he doesn't do that. And I go, okay, great. Let's set the intention for clarity on this relationship, and what's best for you. What's inside of you, what's in your heart. And they do the breath work with me. We do a full session, an hour, and they'd sit up afterwards and they go, he's not the one. You know why? Because they turned off their head, the two lawyers arguing the case, and they moved into their heart, and their heart was very clear that he wasn't the person for them. What happens though, a couple days later, the head turns back on, the computer starts working again, the fear kicks in, and the fear says, you don't want to go back on those dating apps, do you? You don't want to get back out there in the world. He's not that bad. So now they're living in fear instead of living in faith in their heart that I'm fine by myself. Maybe I should just get a cat or a dog if I'm lonely, and like be whole within myself. And so I say, do breath work again when that fear kicks back on. Turn off the head, turn off the fear, go back into your heart, and keep moving from that place. And that's how you change your life. That's how you change this relationship, this issue.
And that is the key.
That's
the key right there. Because when you make that kind of a change, not only are you changing your life, you're changing your life experience. I think it's what you meant when you said you change your life. Your experience changes.
Yeah.
You end up in a better feeling place, a place that, I mean, the way you said earlier is that, I don't remember your exact wording, but the general idea is happiness is fleeting. And I get that. I hear that a lot. I actually think of myself living in happiness all the time. I just don't think of it as a giddy happiness, but I just feel happy all the time, largely because I feel okay with myself as I am, rather than trying to turn myself into something I really will never be.
You can live in a joyful state. I think joy is sort of where I try to strive for. You can live in a joyful state. You can be happy, but things are going to come along and slap you in the face in this world that we have. And you're just like, okay, stuff's going to happen. Or stuff for me, like something happens to my kids and I'm like, oh, that's the trigger now. Like, that's like, I'm fine. Like there's nothing you can do to me at this point. But like, if you do something to my kids, now I'm going to burn your house down. So I have to work in that area of like my kids have their own path. They have their own, higher power, their own God, whatever. And like trust the universe there around my children.
Sure.
But most of the time I'm really happy. It took me a long time to get here. And things can take it off track, but it is a choice, right? It's a choice. What are you choosing? Do you want to live in a joyful state? What am I focusing on? Whatever you focus on expands, right? I'm focusing on the beautiful things that are happening in my life today. If I'm focusing on and at the same time, some shitty things are happening too. It's not all good. So wherever I want to focus my attention, focus my energy, that's what I'm going to feel.
Very true. Yeah. So, I mean, as usual, we're blowing through the time here. We got about 10 minutes left, and we have a few things we do at the end too. So I want to leave time for those as well. But if you can you just kind of like give us like an overview? What happens in this 30-minute period?
Well, it's hard to say, Walt, because it's different for everybody and it's different every time. So you're going to have a different experience than Jody Lynn has, right? You might have an experience. I hate to put this out there because it doesn't happen for everyone. It's never happened for me, but some people are visited by relatives that have passed, loved ones that have passed in the session. Other people feel the presence of a higher power or God, whatever you want to call it. What Jody Lynn was talking about getting downloads. I've had lots of downloads during my sessions. I have a download like, you got to go help this person. You got to go help that person. You know, I get lots of downloads in my session. So it does, for some people, produce what I would consider almost a near-death experience in the way that like you get really focused on what really matters in your life. Like all the noise and the bullshit gets cleared away. Like you're focused on the bill, this bill and that situation, all that. Like, you're like, none of that matters. I'm like, when you have a near-death experience, you're like, this is what really matters. Let me just tell the people in my life that I love them. Let me go spend time with those people. That's what really matters. And so it brings you back to this really centered place of what's really important, what really matters in your life. And, you know, some people will have stuff that comes up that's really heavy traumas. You know, I had traumas come up. The breathwork didn't put the trauma there. The breathwork is just showing you that the trauma needs to be healed. That needs to be worked on, right? Breathwork didn't do it. You know, breathwork didn't stab me when I was 19. So like it came up and it's like, oh, I was just healing that piece of me and this piece of me and healing this thing. And so it's layers that it works through. Some people are unicorns. My wife is a unicorn. They didn't have any trauma. They didn't have anything bad happen. A great childhood. So they just come and they just do the breathing and they feel amazing afterwards. Other people, you know, they have things that they have to work on. Most of us, I would say, most of us have things that we have to work on. And
so I mean, are you literally just lying down and breathing in and out of your mouth, and that's the whole technique?
Well, so that's one aspect of the class. So I do a 10-minute demonstration, you know, talk, show you how to do it. I do a lay down demonstration, and then you lay down and you start breathing, and I coach you for 30 minutes through the whole breathwork thing. And then I'm like, okay, well, this time let's let out a yell. 1, 2, 3, and we yell. And then there's a rest song, and I shut up for that song. And then I have you pull moments of gratitude from your life, moments of love from your life, different moments, because I want to bring people back. You know, maybe all this heavy stuff came up and your heart's wide open, you're vulnerable, you just had a massive cry, but I want to bring you back to gratitude and love. I want you to leave the class or the session with gratitude and love focused on that, right? So I have you pull moments of gratitude, moments of love. I read a quote, and then you lay there and enjoy it for a few more songs, and that's kind of where the downloads come in. That's when the universe is telling you, hey, this is what I need to do now. I need to do this breath work for a while. Or, hey, you know, I need to go talk to this person. Hey, I need to do that, this or that. And so you lay there and enjoy it for a few more songs. I like to say, you didn't come here for the breathing technique and for me to yell at you. You came here to feel amazing afterwards. So don't like get up right away and start arguing with people on Facebook. There's plenty of time to let those people know how wrong they are in life, right? Yeah. So, you know, I suggest journaling afterwards, whatever. And then I do a short Q&A after the class, you know, and it's short, it's a few minutes, and then you go about your day, you know, make a nice meal, go for a walk, and then you've shifted something inside of you. It's a huge state change. People liken it to psychedelics these days. Psychedelics are really popular, ayahuasca and all these different things. And what I say about that is, you know, I can't do ayahuasca and go pick up my kids from school on a Tuesday afternoon.
Not a good idea.
No, but I can lay down and do breath work and then feel amazing and then go pick up my kids from school. So it's a more realistic solution. It's a more realistic tool for an everyday lifestyle. And it doesn't have to be the whole class. You can do a shorter version of it. But like I tell people, like, come try it out the first time with me and have that experience and then decide what's next for you.
Okay. Well, if we're going to invite people to do that, we should actually tell them, you know, how to go sign up to do that.
Yeah. So my website is breathewithjp.com, BREATHEWITHJP. Breathe with, not breath with JP. People forget the E at the end of breathe, but breathewithjp.com. And I have, you know, it's a $10 discount your first time. So the first time is $19, very affordable. There's a 5-day replay after the class. So the class is 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern time, right? Any other time, you have to figure that out for yourself. But, there's a 5-day replay if you miss the live class. And I tell people, if you're new, you might want to come to the live class and keep your camera on so I can watch you and coach you. That's ideal. But you don't have to. I have lots of people just sign up and do the replay. People from all over the world sign up for this, and they do it because they're in different time zones, And so I was doing this online. I've been doing this online for 9 years now. I was doing it way before COVID. So when COVID hit, I was like, I'm already here. I'm ready to do this, And so I've been doing this online for a long time, and I have all the tools to do it online, and I do a great job at it. And so I love doing this class. And then you can decide what's next for you from there. Like I have teacher trainings. I have a course called the 5-day emotional detox course, which is really powerful, combining exercises with the breathwork, certain writing exercises and other exercises with the breathwork. That's really powerful. And so some people are like, yeah, maybe I want to do that course and then upgrade to the teacher training if they want to do that. And so I've certified over 3,000 people in my method of teaching this breathwork. Wow. Yeah, it's incredible. All over the world. I did the largest class ever, circular breathwork class ever in Switzerland last year, 900 people. And then I had a full circle moment where I got reached out. Tony Robbins people reached out to me, and I got to do a class for Tony Robbins.
Oh my!
And that was incredible in one of his seminars. And it was like, did you guys know my Tony Robbins story? And they're like, no. And I'm like, oh wow! Like I met Tony 15 years ago, and he invited me to the seminar and changed my life. And then I found breathwork right after that. And this is like a huge full circle moment for me. So yeah, I've been, I do it. I've done it all over the world, and it's amazing, and I'm blessed, and I love it. And so I'm mainly just doing online classes now. I do them sometimes in Santa Monica or Bend, Oregon, where I live, but I'm mostly doing it online these days.
Okay. Well, and we'll make sure that Jen will make sure she includes the link in the show notes so that people can find it easily and go check it out and hopefully join you on. How often do you do these now?
Every Sunday I do it.
Every Sunday, okay.
Sunday morning, 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern. So I do it every week, and and there's a 5-day replay afterwards.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. That's very cool. I'm also curious. You may not know the answer, but how many people actually go to the thing and then do the replay afterward? They do both of them.
A lot. I don't have as many people come to the live. I probably have like 35 people come to the live, and then, but I can see when I click on it, when it gets deleted, that like 200 people did the replay, or it was done 200 times, and I had 70 people signed up for it, and it was done 200 times. Like, Zoom shows you those numbers. Yeah, during COVID, the numbers were a lot higher. It was like 300 people were coming to the classes.
You had a captive audience at that point, of course.
Yeah. It was weird because it was like I had all these things scheduled. I had a retreat in Iceland sold out, and all these trainings and all these events, and they all got canceled. And I was like, oh man, I was heartbroken. And then everyone showed up online, and they would come do my Sunday class, and then they would buy all the online courses. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm just doing this now and get to spend more time with my kids. My kids are never going to be these ages again. So this is actually,
right.
And I had a big travel schedule ahead. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is what the universe wants for me right now.
That's a good thing. That's really good.
Yeah.
Well, it's been great. We have a couple things that we do at the end of every program. I want to make sure we do that here.
Okay.
And the first one is to go to Jody Lynn, who, you already have a good sense of what she's like. She's also a consummate note taker. She's been taking all kinds of notes here. And she has this really great ability to tie everything together. So I like to go to her at the end and ask, Jody Lynn, how are you tying this together today?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, I think that the world that we live in, we are conscious, or we are so constantly inundated with so many things going on, good, bad, the war is going on and this is going on. And we're so stuck in this traumatic pattern or in this fight, flight, freeze side of things. And we have no idea that we're stuck there. And this conversation has been so uplifting and so magical for me, because I think it's another tool that goes in the toolbox. Something, we were talking about ayahuasca. That's not something you can do when you go pick up your kids on a random Tuesday. No, it's not something that you can do every single day, or as much as you need to, or breath work you can. And I think that we live in a world where we're taught to be plastic happy, where we're supposed to be, everything's supposed to be good. And when we have all these things, we'll be happy. And something that you said, Jon Paul, that really struck me is we have to give up our dreams to step into our destiny. And I'm going to twist it a little bit, because I think this addition is helpful. We have to give up our perceived dreams, the things that we think growing up that we've been modeled, or that society has shown that we must go in this direction to be successful, to be happy, to be worthy, to be good enough. And all of it is bullshit. And when we drop that perceived dream of what life should look like, we finally can see what it could look like. Super heart-centered, connected, and a life truly worth living. So thank you for that reminder, Jon Paul, today.
Thank you. That's beautiful. I love that. Actually, the theme of the classes online have different themes. And I always tell people, don't come or not come for the theme, because the breathwork's going to deliver whatever it is you need at that moment when you come to the class. But I make them themes anyways, because people like the themes. And this weekend's theme is breathwork detox to clear social media, news, and technology. Okay. So that's right on what you said, because it's all so overwhelming right now. And I was like, I'm going to do that theme. You know, last week's theme was old wounds and traumas, right?
Yeah.
And so there's all these different themes, but yeah, whatever it is we need at that time is what it's going to give you.
I love that.
Well, I want to thank you for joining us on the program. This has been a really great conversation. You helped us achieve our goal. You saw it during the beginning video where we talk about this is your daily dose of happy. That's the goal every time, to feel better by the end of the show, and you helped us to do that. So thank you for doing that. One thing I want to leave you with, though, something I started doing about almost 5 years ago now, because we live in this era where we have these wonderful technologies. I mean, you talked about the Zoom earlier. We do this on StreamYard. I don't know how many different technologies we've used over the years to do this podcast. I've been doing it 13 and a half years. I probably used like a half a dozen different technologies at one time or another. But along with all this technology, it also gives us the ability to connect with each other. I mean, you're in Los Angeles, I'm in Connecticut, she's in Alberta, Canada. I got a co-host in the UK, another one in Richmond, Virginia. I've had co-hosts all around the world at various times. I mean, and not to mention all the guests who have come out of the program. That's something that didn't exist 40 years ago. It has changed the way that we think about things. It has changed the way that we market things. It has changed the way that we share things. And the sharing part has become really, really big. People who are primarily givers, people like you, like us, we want to share. We end up sharing, and we end up touching a lot of lives, often without actually seeing what happened after we touched their lives. And that's the thing that I noticed about 5 years ago. So, Jon Paul, I always like to say it this way: on behalf of those people you've never met and you've never seen and never will meet and never will see, who you've been helping in ways you didn't even know about just because you've been sharing in every way that you possibly can, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you are making a difference in this world.
Thank you for saying that. That means a lot.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.